Hey everyone, it's Ariana Guajardo. We are back with season 2 of the Sweet Tea series. Today we are starting off with some not so sweet tea. There are some crazy allegations about Mr. Beast co-hosts, and it turns out the internet is a very sketchy place. Let's get started. So today I am joined by Kristen Eichamer. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah, you did. That was beautiful. You're German.
I'm so happy. See, yeah. I just got I got a new last name. Everyone is probably confused why the Ariana Silva is no longer the one hosting. But yeah, I understand the new complicated last names with all the consonants tripping over themselves. So wait, say it one more time.
It's Kristen Eichamer.
Okay, so you are from the Problematic Women podcast. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Problematic Women, it's essentially just a landing point for people that are on the right side of the aisle, but don't necessarily fall into the feminist, left's definition of what makes a woman. So anyone that's kind of interested in the news, but also, very passionate about empowering women, in the right way. So it's a great podcast. We talk about news issues every single week. On Wednesdays we record, Thursdays we drop our issues. We've got some exciting new developments coming. So end of August, actually, be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys like this show, definitely give theirs a follow as well. And I think you're on you're not a video podcast, right? So just podcasting platforms? You
might have just kind of gotten the scoop, but yeah, we're looking at becoming a video podcast starting in September-ish. But for now, we're on Spotify. We have an Instagram. It's at Problematic Women, all lowercase. And I think we might revamp the Twitter as well. So more to come.
Nice. So let's jump into the cultural things that are in the news right now. We have Mr. Beast. We have the Olympic stuff happening. As I said, the internet is a really sketchy and weird place. So do you know about what happened with the Mr. Beast? Well, I guess it's not. I feel bad tying Jimmy into it, but about what happened with Kris Tyson?
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of an understanding. It's one of those, it's almost like catfish, right? Where someone becomes something that you didn't expect and starts, bringing some explicit content to children that they shouldn't be. And fortunately, that's now being exposed. And you said it's a weird, sketchy place. It's more of a dark place in this sense, which is really too bad. And it really, I don't know, when I was a kid, when I played soccer, and I was always told, be careful what you post, be careful who you're connected to online, because that might come to bite you. And unfortunately, it seems like Mr. Beast is learning that the hard way.
Yeah. Did you, how old were you when you finally got social media?
So I'm trying to remember my first post. I've done that, how sometimes you look through your social media, it's like a time capsule in a way. Yes. I think I first posted in 2014. So it was later. I was in high school. I don't remember the exact day, or age, but that was definitely later than some people for sure.
And you were like later high school at that point then, right?
Yeah, I was, I think a junior, maybe a senior. I'm not sure.
So the weird thing about this story, and just to give some context, so Mr. Beast, his real name, Jimmy Donaldson, he had this guy he was friends with for years who's kind of like a sidekick on his channel. And a lot of their content is aimed towards children. And they're now the biggest channel in the entire world with 300 million subscribers. Also, to put that into context, during the time of Christ, the estimates for how big the world population was is half of that, like 150 million.
Wow. So that's insane.
Yeah, but that's just how many people are subscribed to Mr. Beast right now, just to give...
Well, he's doing great work, right? Like, he does the fundraisers. He started with that counting to 100,000 video. Yeah. It's insane what people will watch online.
But and he's really committed to his stuff. He also does like the Team Trees, Team C. So he's trying to do philanthropic... Sorry, I cannot pronounce that word. Philanthropic work as well. So, but he tries to keep this really clean-cut image. But about a year ago, his co-star, whose name is Kris Tyson, came out as trans and started going by Ava Kris Tyson. And also, because I wanted this to stay online, I'm going to try to be avoiding pronouns as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just
that's safe. Better safe than sorry sometimes.
So this person, Ava, a year later, it's revealed by this other YouTuber, not Penguin Zero, that's someone else, Prism 42, exposed some weird tweets that were going on between Kris, and we'll just use Kris because that's both names, Kris and someone who was 13 at the time this was happening, and Kris is like 21. They're texting some inappropriate things back and forth on Twitter, on Discord, and I was just struck by the fact that whenever I got social media, I was 13, the same age as this kid. And I think my parents were a little bit like, they try to look at what my Instagram was every once in a while. But I don't think that they had the tools to understand how much more there was like that was going on the internet.
Well, it's hard because the internet is definitely a space where a lot can happen without parental supervision, unfortunately. Like, you've got dating apps, you've got social media apps, you've got YouTube, where I truly don't think of YouTube as a social media app, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people will fill the comment section like none other. There's direct messaging and everything from a Crate and Barrel, thing where you're like asking questions to a bot, but then it brings you to someone. Like, there's so many avenues to connect with people online, which is beautiful and awesome. And I think the intended
like you said,
purpose.
With Crate and Barrel, it's really helpful when you need it.
Yeah, like,
get something.
Do I spend too much time? Maybe. But I think that's what's so dangerous about it is, when I was a kid, my parents were very protective over what I did online. Like, Club Penguin was big when I was a kid, and they, made sure I was only on for a little bit just to make sure there was a balance between going outside and staying online. But also because they cared about my health, they cared about who I was interacting with. Like, we're kind of changing from this generation where parents were very involved with their children's lives, and they set play dates, they hosted parties, all of that. And now we're seeing children kind of shift to more of the social scene online, and how that impacts their, just day-to-day thinking and mental health and long-term lifestyles is very scary.
Do you know what's kind of funny what you're pointing out, that parents were or at least, are your parents Gen X or Boomers?
Ooh, I think they're Gen X. They're younger.
Yeah. So mine too. But it's funny because I think Boomer parents and older like millennials especially, they were raising their kids in a world where they could like go out and like play with their friends. They were just like could go run down the street, go to like whatever near stores, and had a lot of, I guess, freedom outside of the house. But they didn't have an internet world to protect either. But then Gen X, I think, was a little bit, especially after 9/11, the world shifted to where I think our parents, like you said, they would set up like the play dates. They were a little bit more aware of what was going on in our lives and where we were at all times. And I don't think it was as normal for Gen Z to just say like, I'm 9 years old, I'm going to go walk however many blocks to go do something.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, I'm sure you didn't have that.
No, I mean, I stayed within my block radius. We lived right by the pool. So like that wasn't a very far walk. But honestly, thank God too, because I listen to some of these serial killer podcasts. I don't do it anymore because it's too scary. Like I listened to the DC sniper one and I was like, okay, we got to be done. We're never going to go outside of our house if I continue listening to stuff like this. But some of those stories, it's insane. Like, it's just the parents not being home. And luckily, that's what's beautiful about the nuclear family. And I am so blessed to have the parents I do, because my dad went and worked and my mom was super involved with everything from soccer to school to almost, it almost felt like a helicopter parent, but like in the best way. Like, she was just a very involved mom.
But it's funny that parents, like you were saying, a lot of like our generation's parents, so usually they're going to be Gen X, they were protective about the outside stuff. But I think now we're understanding that as much as they could control that, they didn't know what's happening online, which is how
Wild West
stuff like happens. And again, it wasn't a problem before because, or you said you had Club Penguin, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't, but you could message people on Club Penguin,
and it was
right?
weird. Yeah, it was. But again, so we kind of talked about this before. I was a very naive child. I'm still probably a little naive right now. We're learning, we're becoming adults. It's awesome. But what comes with that is you just see the best in everyone. And like on, a Club Penguin or even Instagram, because I got that in high school, you would, DM someone or your friends, usually not strangers, but you didn't expect anything crazy like what we're seeing with the Kris stuff. Never would I ever have thought that would be something that people would do. Granted, I feel like what I've seen as the justification for Kris's actions, 21 to 13 is not a huge difference. And I think the problem, honestly, is what we're seeing with this expansion of online life. Like, that's truly what it is. We're not seeing people as involved anymore in physical, hard manual labor. We're seeing more of an online presence. And what comes with that is a lack of maturity, a lack of accountability, and a lack of responsibility. And so people do things to go viral, and people do things to be popular online because then they can monetize that, which is, what Mr. Beast has done very successfully and very responsibly. But then we're seeing what Kris is doing, and it's just kind of scary because you got to remember, you are 21. You are over the age of 18. What you're talking about with these people is inappropriate.
And he's in college at that point, actually, while the other person was, I think, 13, so in middle school.
Right. But I think because online almost like levels the playing field for everyone. It doesn't.
I see what you're saying. You're not seeing them physically, so it's a little bit different.
It's a little different, exactly. So the responsibility there and the accountability of acting like an adult has kind of been lost, I feel like, which is why some people feel like they can act that way, and it's very inappropriate.
That's true. And it's also weird that, so Jimmy, Mr. Beast, he tries to have this unproblematic image, has never had any of that stuff posted himself. But it is weird that he lived with Kris while that happened. And also there's, I think it also highlights the way that the media hasn't been responsible enough with the people that they choose to highlight. Mm-hmm. So for example, Kris and Mr. Beast were invited to the Kids' Choice Awards, which is hosted by Nickelodeon. And that's after weird tweets like that, and also talking about like inappropriate, I don't even want to say the name of the kind of art, but it's anime art depicting
I didn't
children.
even know it existed, to be honest. Like, what is that?
Having to research for this, I've learned a little bit too much. I won't even mention the name of things like that, but he was Kris, again, trying to avoid stuff. Kris was posting about that kind of art and engaging with an artist who does demonstrate children, like, again, anime styled kids in inappropriate situations. And Kris was always interacting with this so much that he had like the actual one of those artist pieces on his bedroom wall, which was in a Mr. Beast video in the background. And Jimmy lived with him during that time. So these are the people that Nickelodeon is highlighting. So I almost feel bad for parents who probably don't realize like that how much they need to monitor what's happening.
Well, and you don't know what you don't know, unfortunately, and the internet has expanded the things that you might not know, and that's what's really scary. And that's where I am so grateful that I grew up in the time that I did. You know, we had some struggles and definitely would have loved more of a technology. If we could ask AI now random questions to like help with schoolwork, that would have been great. But it's crazy what we don't know at this point. You also have to think the best Mr. Beast. I truly don't know that much about him as a person, like just what I've seen online. And I mean, we saw the Nickelodeon documentary come out last year, I think. There have been similar, scandals that have come out recently. And that's kind of what's powerful about technology is these people that are getting away with the nonsense, they are being held accountable a little bit more just because it's being exposed.
That's true. So now we know it's out there because we can see it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So it does bring that stuff to light.
Totally.
But which is the scary thing is now we're having to see it, but at least we can see what our issue is now.
It's better to have to deal with the ugly truth and acknowledge it than not realize that it exists. So
speaking about some ugly truths, the stuff at the Olympics.
What a transition. I love it.
Oh gosh, speaking about transitions, the stuff happening at the Olympics has been very interesting. And I kind of want to answer this question at the end of this, which is, how do we not support the kind of material that was being released during the opening ceremony while also looking or trying to support our American athletes? So what happened at the Olympics?
Oh my God, it was just despicable. I mean, Jill Biden, this is, First Lady.
Yes,
she
Dr.
said
Jill.
It was Dr. Jill. She is not a problematic woman, but she said it was spectacular. And oh my goodness, it was disgusting.
And what we're talking about is there was part of the opening ceremony featured this drag performance wherein these drag queens depicted Da Vinci's Last Supper. And
the long painting with Jesus Christ in the center. It's the Last Supper before
he is
crucified.
And they all took poses at the end in tableaus and to their place on the table, trying to represent, I guess, be a mockery of Christ and the disciples.
Yeah.
The Olympics came out in a statement saying that that wasn't what it was, and it was actually supposed to be honoring this I think it's one of the Greek goddesses of wine or something like that.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think that's what it was, to be honest. I haven't studied Greek mythology that closely. I read The Lightning Thief, so, we got into it.
So you're an expert, okay.
So I'm an expert, obviously, but
they didn't have a Last Supper during the...
No, they didn't. And I got into mythology, too, so I kind of, I'm not an expert, but I did, read some more than Percy Jackson's story. But... No, I mean, you can put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. So I don't necessarily trust them. Again, I want to think the best of everyone. I really want to have a positive outlook towards this. The Olympics are an amazing, amazing event. And honestly, America always wins. If you've looked back at the last few.
So we really enjoy that.
So I love that, bragging rights. Like, who doesn't want those? But it was pretty disgusting. And I saw this on Twitter, and it just, I think, perfectly summarizes how I feel. The reason that we are able to disagree and still love our neighbor is because of Christ, you know? And so for a group that a lot of people don't necessarily agree with to, you know, have that type of portrayal of him, it's just unacceptable. We deserve an apology. I'm Catholic, so, you know, we look at Christ and we look at tradition and we really honor it, as do all Christians. But it's just, what is the excuse here? Like, you can say that that's not what you meant to do, but you offended a lot of people. And for a group, a protected group, honestly, is what a lot of people call them, that just, you know, constantly has to play the victim. I'm not even going to play the victim. I'm just going to say, please respect me. Like, please respect my traditions, my religion, and my core beliefs, because you just attacked them and kind of laughed about it. And our First Lady called it spectacular.
Right. And they were saying that it was a way to show inclusivity and acceptance. But while doing so, they are alienating, I think it's about a third of the world's population. About 2.4 billion people on the planet right now identify as Christian. So, and I'm Catholic as well. But for all Christians, the Last Supper is Christ saying, I'm giving my body for you.
Take
it's a
this.
central piece of what it means to be Christian, which is that Christ is saying, I'm going to choose to suffer, to die for you, to give myself to you. And I think it's a complete opposite and a perversion that this kind of ideology says, which is...
Yeah, I mean, it is such an important event that, I mean, the Catholic faith, every Sunday we reenact it, you know? So it's such an intimate part of the religion and just how it came to be in general. That's why I am disappointed. It's interesting too, because Paris and France, very Christian nation. So for something like this to happen there, it's scary, because it's where next, you know? Are we going to see stuff like this in England? We're already seeing stuff like this in the US. Unfortunately, they make fun of Jesus all the time. Look at Family Guy, or not Family Guy, South Park. But it's just interesting to see the difference in respect and understanding for not only just like the Christian faith, but when you look at the LGBTQ community, the tolerance they have for that, the, you know, Muslims, the tolerance they have for that. I'm not exactly sure when it became okay to make, you know, the Christian faith kind of just something you could poke fun of.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's also really weird, because I was thinking of just about the standards that television has had over the years. So in the 60s and stuff, you weren't even allowed to mention the word pregnancy. In like I Love Lucy, for example, they're sleeping in separate beds. So those were like the standards of decency back then. And sometime between then and now, we now have drag queens across the stage at an event that's being watched by, it is supposed to be something that brings the entire world together for all ages. And that's not the show that they're giving us.
Speaking of all ages, there was a child that was identified at the Last Supper
Really?
scene. So not only that, but there were drag queens around a child, which a lot of U.S. states and a lot of leaders here have said that is not something that is acceptable. However, when we have a candidate like Kamala Harris, who goes on RuPaul's Drag Race to plug herself and, you know, pander to her base, you got to think about that when you're choosing the next leader of this country.
Right. And it is weird that you pointed out that it was happening in France, which is a Christian, or I guess it's a secular nation now, but it still has a lot of Christian roots. And I think France has the title of Daughter of the Church, if I'm not mistaken, just from what branched out from France and its significance. So it is really sad seeing that the church as a whole, the body of Christ, is suffering, and these wounds coming from the inside too.
I was in Paris this past fall, and there's just so much beautiful architecture there and so many churches. I went to a Catholic mass while I was there. I can't remember where exactly, but just it was full. And this was at night. We went after dinner, accidentally stumbled upon this church, needed to, you know, go for Sunday mass, and it was so crowded, and there were so many people that were just so excited to celebrate. Which
was a vigil mass?
Yeah, it was a
That's
vigil
beautiful.
mass. It was amazing. And I mean, just, you know, given the backdrop too, you walk out and you could see the Eiffel Tower down the hill. It was beautiful. So we can say that, you know, it's technically a secular nation, but the foundation of that country was definitely built on the Christian values, as was ours. You know, like, embrace that, be okay with that. We can disagree, but like be respectful about it. So
Right.
Yeah.
The other funny thing about it being in France is so many different things leading up to it too just kind of represented different degradations in our world. So like, did you know or have you seen the stuff about the Olympic beds and what they're sleeping on?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The cardboard. That was awesome.
It's made out of cardboard. So some of the athletes are like, oh, it's not that bad. And look how cool this bed is.
Did you see the rugby team? They were testing it by like jumping on it and wrestling on it. The women's team.
Did it work?
Yeah, it held up. I was impressed. Like
Okay.
they were really testing it too. Like two full-grown adults like jumping on a cardboard bed, and it did not give. Like, give that bed a medal.
So I guess we need to say, yeah, the gold for making beds goes to France.
Yeah, exactly. Cardboard beds.
Yeah, that's so funny. But I don't know if they're comfortable or not. I guess we'll see when more TikToks coming out.
Yeah,
but I guess some of our athletes are well rested because I think we're already doing well in.
We're already winning,
swimming,
man.
I think.
Like we always do.
I need to follow the actual sports part of this a little bit more closely. The culture pieces have been blinding it a little bit. And then leading up to it, too, I think the thing that was highlighting just discord and disunity was the protests that were happening in France. Mm-hmm. So, like, people going into the river and defecating in the river to try to protest the Olympics happening there.
I actually didn't see that. That is disgusting.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I hate bodily functions, and that is just why... I don't even know how you do that. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I'm sorry to ruin your day by letting you know that. So those were like the protests that were happening in France leading up to the event.
What was it for? They just didn't want it there? I get that it shuts the city down, but it also brings a ton of money.
Yes, but part of it was they were concerned about the environmental impacts. So
yes.
Yes.
So these are the people that are gluing their hands to the streets and throwing soup at the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that there was some overlap. I have not seen proof that it's the exact same people. But I am willing to bet that there is definitely a connection between the two.
Yikes.
But I am glad you were mentioning the women's rugby team. Have you been following their Instagram stuff?
I've been following their Instagram. We actually talked about it at the last episode of Problematic Women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's awesome. And she's so... I can't remember what her name is. I
can't now either. I feel
it's
like
Ilmar or something.
In post-production, cue the picture of her right here.
Yeah, exactly. She's awesome. And it's just so cool to like get a behind the scenes, like, but also comedic kind of point of view.
Yes.
From someone, and it's cool too because she is built. Like I do CrossFit, but she is so built.
I was watching a clip from her game yesterday, and just like one of the times where she just shoved someone out of the way and like books it across the field. It's impressive.
Just such an athlete, honestly, like so powerful. And it's cool because she also embraces the feminine side. And that's like what Problematic Women is totally about, right? Like you can do both. You can be this awesome athlete, but also like totally in touch with your feminine side, want to put a dress and lipstick on.
Actually, that's in her bio. It says, I'm probably wearing red lipstick.
Yeah, right. No, she's just so powerful and so cool. And that is such an awesome role model. That is what the Olympics like are about. Not this nonsense we're seeing at the opening ceremony and whatever other nonsense is going to come in the next week and a half. Yeah, to your point, we shouldn't be distracted by the cultural stuff. Like we should be paying more attention to the athletes because as a former athlete, I played in college. And
what did you play?
I played soccer. So I've been watching the soccer team a little bit. I've been traveling a lot, so not as well. But it's just, this is it. This is the pinnacle of what you work towards. There were girls that were probably 3 or 4 years old learning to dribble the soccer ball, dreaming about this moment. Why is this opening ceremony taking away from it? I have no idea. Unfortunately, that is the reality we're living in, though. So
right. And someone was saying that the way that we should respond to the opening ceremonies is by not watching the Olympics at all. Yeah. And what do you think about that? What is a way to show that we're not approving of it? Well,
I mean, I think that just you got to be loud about what you're upset about, you know? I think you can still watch the sports themselves, and maybe you don't tune into the ceremonial pieces, coverage, the ceremony pieces, etc. Go to Twitter and say, this is messed up. I don't like it. And, you know, President Macron, he can be swayed. We've seen that before. He has put out statements for, you know, people like the LGBTQ community. I think if there were enough voices saying this is messed up, you owe us an apology, he would do the same.
Right. I think the best way to go about it is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's keep the
Watch
Olympic
the
part
sports,
intact.
Support the athletes, but you know,
go to that girl's Instagram page.
Yeah, exactly. Give her some love.
Yeah, it was actually funny, like looking at her Instagram and feeling this sense of patriotism.
Yeah.
So I think she was on all of her posts, especially whenever she found out that she was going to the Olympics, were just so pro-American. And I really appreciate that, which is, I feel like it's funny that my standard now is just someone not hating America and just even being indifferent towards it is like, wow, that's a new patriot that I'm looking at.
It's kind of sad, but yeah, no, I mean, be proud, wave your flags, wear red, white, and blue nails, like do all of the things, because like America is the greatest country. We don't need to win all of the medals this time to show that. We probably will. We will win a lot. But we have so much to be thankful for. And, the best is yet to come. We've got coming back. Like everyone keeps saying, we're so back, because there's just an awakening, I feel, in that patriotism. We're seeing a revival of, Western type themes. And that's because we're proud of the country we live in, the exploration that we're doing, and all the accomplishments we've made.
So like you said, we are back culturally. We're back here on the Sweet Tea Podcast, which, by the way, make sure that you follow us everywhere that we post our podcast. On YouTube, give us a subscription. Follow us on Instagram at Spilling Sweet Tea. One more time, do you want to give your show a shout out?
Oh, yeah. Please follow Problematic Women at Problematic Women on Instagram. Check us out on Spotify, CastBox, wherever you listen.
Yeah, Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So keep being a problematic woman, and we'll see you next time on Spilling Sweet Tea.